Ananda. On one occasion the Lord was dwelling at Savathi in Jeta's Grove, Anathapindika's park. On that occasion the Venerable Jarimananda was sick, afflicted, and gravely ill. Then the Venerable Ananda approached the Lord, paid homage to him, sat down to one side, and said to him, Bhante, the Venerable Jarimananda is sick, afflicted, and gravely ill. It would be good if the Lord would visit him out of compassion. If, Ananda, you visit the bhikkhu Jarimananda and speak to him about 10 perceptions, if is possible that on hearing about them his affliction will immediately subside. What are the 10? 10 right perceptions i.e. the perception of impermanence, the perception of non-self, the perception of unattractiveness, the perception of danger, the perception of abandoning, the perception of dispassion, the perception of cessation, the perception of non-delight in the entire world, the perception of impermanence in all conditioned phenomena, and mindfulness of breathing. And what, Ananda, is the perception of impermanence? Here, having gone to the forest, to the foot of a tree, or to an empty hut, a bhikkhu reflects thus. Form is impermanent, sensation is impermanent, perception is impermanent, one's characteristics are impermanent, consciousness is impermanent. Thus he dwells watching impermanence in these 5 aggregates subject to clinging. This is called the perception of impermanence. And what, Ananda, is the perception of non-self? Here, having gone to the forest, to the foot of a tree, or to an empty hut, a bhikkhu reflects thus. The eye is non-self, forms are non-self. The ear is non-self, sounds are non-self. The nose is non-self, odors are non-self. The tongue is non-self, tastes are non-self. The body is non-self, tactile objects are non-self. The mind is non-self, mental phenomena are non-self. Thus he dwells watching non-self in these 6 internal and external sense bases. This is called the perception of non-self. And what, Ananda, is the perception of unattractiveness? Here, a bhikkhu reviews this very body upward from the soles of the feet and downward from the tips of the hairs, enclosed in skin, as full of many kinds of impurities. There are in this body hair of the head, hair of the body, nails, teeth, skin, flesh, sinews, bones, bone marrow, kidneys, heart, liver, pleura, spleen, lungs, intestines, mesentery, stomach, excrement, bile, phlegm, pus, blood, sweat, fat, tears, grease, saliva, snot, fluid of the joints, urine. Thus he dwells watching unattractiveness in this body. This is called the perception of unattractiveness. And what, Ananda, is the perception of danger? Here, having gone to the forest, to the foot of a tree, or to an empty hut, a bhikkhu reflects thus. This body is the source of much pain and danger. For all sorts of afflictions arise in this body. That is, eye disease, disease of the inner ear, nose disease, tongue disease, body disease, head disease, disease of the external ear, mouth disease, tooth disease, cough, asthma, cataract, pyrexia, fever, stomach ache, fainting, dysentery, gripes, cholera, leprosy, boils, eczema, tuberculosis, epilepsy, ringworm, itch, scab, chickenpox, scabies, hemorrhage, diabetes, hemorrhoids, cancer, fistula. Illnesses originating from bile, phlegm, wind, or their combination. Illnesses produced by change of climate. illnesses produced by careless behavior, illnesses produced by assault, or illnesses produced as the result of kama, and cold, heat, hunger, thirst, defecation, and urination. Thus he dwells seeing danger in this body. This is called the perception of danger. And what, Ananda, is the perception of abandoning? Here, a bhikkhu does not tolerate an arisen sensual thought. He abandons it, dispels it, terminates it, and obliterates it. He does not tolerate an arisen thought of ill will, an arisen thought of harming, bad harmful states whenever they arise. He abandons them, dispels them, terminates them, and obliterates them. This is called the perception of abandoning. And what, Ananda, is the perception of dispassion? Here, having gone to the forest, to the root of a tree, or to an empty hut, a bhikkhu reflects thus. This is peaceful, this is sublime, that is, the stilling of all activities, the relinquishment of all acquisitions, the destruction of craving, dispassion, nibbana. This is called the perception of dispassion. And what, Ananda, is the perception of cessation? Here, having gone to the forest, to the root of a tree, or to an empty hut, a bhikkhu reflects thus. This is peaceful, high, this is sublime, that is, the stilling of all activities, the relinquishment of all acquisitions, the destruction of craving, cessation, nibbana. This is called the perception of cessation. And what, Ananda, is the perception of non-delight in the entire world? Here, a bhikkhu refrains from any engagement and clinging, mental standpoints, adherences, and underlying tendencies in regard to the world, abandoning them without clinging to them. This is called the perception of non-delight in the entire world. And what, Ananda, is the perception of impermanence in all conditioned phenomena? Here, a bhikkhu is repelled, humiliated, and disgusted by all conditioned phenomena. This is called the perception of impermanence in all conditioned phenomena. And what, Ananda, is mindfulness of breathing? Here, a bhikkhu, having gone to the forest, to the foot of a tree, or to an empty hut, sits down. Having folded his legs crosswise, straightened his body, and established mindfulness in front of him, just mindful he breathes in, mindful he breathes out. Breathing in long, he knows. I breathe in long. Or breathing out long, he knows. I breathe out long. Breathing in short, he knows. I breathe in short. Or breathing out short, he knows. I breathe out short. He trains thus. Experiencing the whole body, I will breathe in. He trains thus. Experiencing the whole body, I will breathe out. He trains thus. Tranquilizing the I bodily activity, I will breathe in. He trains thus. Tranquilizing the bodily activity, I will breathe out. Single quote dot. He trains thus. Experiencing bliss, I will breathe in. He trains thus. Experiencing bliss, I will breathe out. He trains thus. Experiencing happiness, I will breathe in. He trains thus. Experiencing happiness, I will breathe out. He trains thus. Experiencing the mental activity, I will breathe in. He trains thus. Experiencing the mental activity, I will breathe out. He trains thus. Tranquilizing the mental activity, I will breathe in. He trains thus. Tranquilizing the mental activity, I will breathe out. Single quote dot. He trains thus. Experiencing the mind, I will breathe in. He trains thus. Experiencing the mind, I will breathe out. He trains thus. Gladdening the mind, I will breathe in. He trains thus. Gladdening the mind, I will breathe out. He trains thus. Concentrating the mind, I will breathe in. He trains thus. Concentrating the mind, I will breathe out. He trains thus. Liberating the mind, I will breathe in. He trains thus. Liberating the mind, I will breathe out. Single quote dot. He trains thus. Watching impermanence, I will breathe in. He trains thus. Watching impermanence, I will breathe out. He trains thus. Watching fading away, I will breathe in. He trains thus. Watching fading away, I will breathe out. He trains thus. Watching cessation, I will breathe in. He trains thus. Watching cessation, I will breathe out. He trains thus. Watching relinquishment, I will breathe in. He trains thus. Watching relinquishment, I will breathe out. Single quote dot. This is called mindfulness of breathing. If, Ananda, you visit the bhikkhu Jarimananda and speak to him about these 10 perceptions, it is possible that on hearing about them he will immediately recover from his affliction. Then, when the Venerable Ananda had learned these 10 perceptions from the Lord, he went to the Venerable Jarimananda and spoke to him about them. When the Venerable Jarimananda heard about these 10 perceptions, his affliction immediately subsided. The Venerable Jarimananda recovered from that affliction, and that is how he was cured of his affliction.